Dude, if I was Razork, man, I would not want to play for Fnatic anymore because you literally get all the flame because you've had bad games. Admittedly, for Fnatic, you've had rough periods. Everyone's gonna blame you, no matter what. Apparently, and if you succeed, you're not gonna get any of the credit either. It's gonna be like, wow, look at how good Rekkles is now, or like Humanoid's back in form.
Right, this is going to be a new episode of the Best Damn League show. We're going to do a two-man episode again. Obviously, we've reached the playoffs of the LEC. Remember that whole season groups playoffs thing, where even though, as I've pointed out on the last one that we did in the last season, it is a bit off kilter for me still that you do like the groups, but then the day after you do the first upper bracket match. Like I understand the way. Like here's the thing: if I think from LEC's perspective, I get it. Those two teams didn't play on that weekend, so it's fine for them to play. But for me, I just find narratively it feels weird that I go from like groups to like I'm already in the playoffs. Like wait, what the fuck? And then it's like, but then wait the rest of the week for the rest of the play. Like that is a bit weird. But I thought, fuck it, we would talk about this just before we went live. But we may as well just start with the most obvious topic that was ever going to be discussed on the Best Damn League show, an LEC focus show featuring Thorin. Right? Do you actually imagine, guys, that I was going to let not only Fnatic lose and again have another shit season? Which, by the way, I'll just point this out there. If this was the old LEC, they would have missed playoffs twice in a row now. Remember, you used to have to be top 6 to make playoffs. Like, they would have twice fucked up a split. And in this case, Rekkles is on both teams. I already would have a field day anyway. But it's like the universe actually wanted to show me, Dom, no, really, everything you ever said, Thorin, about this guy is true. Because what's mad is, at the end, he actually cost his whole team the game. And here's the thing, though. I will say this. To be fair, the reason why it was also actually quite shocking to me, by the way, is because the real joker this, Dom, I'm going to start in a place people won't expect it. I'm obviously talking when at the end of that game between Mad Lions and Fnatic, obviously Rekkles did ye old fail flash and then just got killed when basically, like, let's be real, you'd have to calculate it anyway, but I'm actually fairly sure they still could have ended. Like, if they'd actually have sort of only focused the Nexus or they'd tanked the tower, they probably do end. So what the problem is this, Dom, in a weird way, the way he actually failed is actually the opposite of all my complaints about Rekkles normally. Like, the joke is, old Rekkles would 100% have ended that game, wouldn't he? Like, old Rekkles would never have been stood in front of his whatever top laner, or if it was behind him, or Advienne or something. He'd have been behind the other guy anyways. You wouldn't get to him. And then secondly, this is one of the maddest things ever, Dom. This is where people who are Fnatic and Rekkles stands just never ever will be consistent. Because the joke is, normally they would have all the reasons as to why you would play conservatively here, like Rekkles would have done. But instead, they're all pretending, no joke, dude, that he is like prime Jackie Love. And that like, well, of course he had. Like, I had people telling me stuff, Dom, like, well, he had to flash there because like otherwise like the Jinx would have gone in that. It's like, no, he could have gone backwards. It's fucking Rekkles. First of all, his game's going backwards anyway in the modern day. His career's going backwards. Jesus. But also, literally, the whole thing about Rekkles' style traditionally is he would definitely have done a backwards flash angle and then just autoed the base. Like, you actually would have ended the game. Like, I actually think this is one of the craziest open and shut ones I've ever seen, Dom. Like, is there even any dispute that he fucked this up and misplayed it? He just did, didn't he? He just brain farted or something.
No, it was clearly bad. It was clearly bad. And then also, when you look at his positioning to start the situation, he's not actually in max auto range. Like, he's on top of the Nexus. He's in melee range of the Nexus. So that's the reason why he has to flash the Jinx traps, which is the argument that people are using to defend it. It's like, oh, yes, well, he would have got CC'd by the Jinx traps. Well, number one, being CC'd by the Jinx traps is better than flashing into the whole enemy team and then not being able to, and not being able to fucking hit anyone, right? Like, dying is definitely worse than getting hit by the Jinx traps. But then also you have Spell Shield. And then also you have an auto range. Like, if you watch where Humanoid is during that fight or during that Nexus end, just watch where Humanoid is and then imagine, oh, Rekkles could have been exactly there. Like, that is literally like same auto range. He could be right there, and he should kite in a way where he's able to get off a couple more autos and force the enemy team to commit in order to kill him. Like, he just flashed into the whole enemy team and they just got to kill the person that's doing the most damage to the Nexus, say for Jax maybe. Easiest in the Nexus situation where they should have to commit a lot of resources, time. They should have to like flash on him, and then if he flashes it in the correct direction, let's say he starts where Humanoid is and then he flashes up instead of down into them, then everyone else is able to get off extra autos and end the game. So it was really tough to watch. I mean, when I was watching it live, I had two thoughts. My first one was like, what the fuck did Rekkles do? And then I was watching the game with Treats and I'm like, oh my god, Thorin is going to have an absolute field day with this shit. Like, this is gonna be, we're gonna see, it's gonna be like one of those Bjergsen fails where you see 15 tweets on your
There you
timeline
go.
in like 7
Yes.
minutes, and you're like,
when
God
TSM
damn.
used to get knocked out of Worlds, basically, which sadly is a dated reference now, but did used to happen every year, didn't it? Like, used to be an annual thing. No, the sad thing is, to bring it back a sec, I actually think I know what they were trying to do with that bullshit. Like, but if he hadn't have, then he would have. Because if you remember, there was actually a famous incident once, Dom. Sadly, I can't remember the opponent, but you might remember it when I say it. Do you remember the one where, oh no, I actually do know, dude. I think it was, if you remember, when we first went online in 2020, do you remember, I think it was the G2 against Mad Lions online game where Caps was in the base and he like could have ended, but he like did like something like a Tristan. But his was like that though, Dom.
His Ziggs W.
Yeah, there you go. But his was, if you ever look into it, like he was actually about to get CC'd basically if he didn't sort of try some sort of dodge. His was more plausible. Like his, when I went back and like did the like frame by frame, maybe there was a case there. I will say as well, on this Fnatic one, the difference is the Rekkles one was just obviously fucked up, guys. As Dom said, no matter what scenario you present as to what else he could have done, it's still better than flash into CC and just get instantly blown up and lose the game. Like that can never be the best option, could it? But the other thing as well is, to be fair, it wasn't only Rekkles. Like I never saw this myself because I'm not a top lane specialist, but it is true. If you go back and check, the Jacks definitely did fuck that up and could have just like not done the E earlier for like no reason whatsoever. Just like the problem is in that scenario, the reason to bring it actually to a real analytical point, Tom, what I found so bizarre about the way Fnatic lost this game is it's actually the opposite of what almost fucked up that regular season game against G2. You know, the one where they came in, but on that one, they all took turns one by one to try and end instead of just having a team fight. They did the opposite this time. And so, like, the sad thing for me is to bring it all back after the humor element. I would just say, like, first of all, this is just like an example of why I didn't believe in Fnatic at all, mate. Like on all my shows, everyone else has still been giving them that like chance to win, like essentially like a puncher's chance. Dude, they don't have a puncher's chance because the puncher's chance relies on the idea that Humanoid will pull out like a bunch of real good games and just carry a match. Like he doesn't do that anymore, mate. Like I'm telling you, this whole year has been so bad for it. Like last year was bad in the sense of like he'd int games, but if you got to a playoffs, maybe you'd have the odd game here and then. Obviously, everyone knows at Worlds he had a couple of good games. He had a good game against T1. Mate, Humanoid this year has just been non-existent for me, or just bad, just actually sometimes outright bad.
Yeah, Humanoid's been super rough to watch. And then when you're watching like these games, it just feels like everyone takes turns having an awful game in playoffs. It's like, you know, one game Razork is running it, the next game Advian's running it, the next game Rekkles is running it, the next game Humanoid's running it. It's just they can't put together like a solid series where, you know, it doesn't matter if everyone's not playing on max level, but you just need to have some games where you're not just giving the enemy team a free entrance to win the game. You need to be able to actually compete. You know, on
I saw a clip someone posted where you went on like the Fnatic sub or something, and mate. Yeah.
They're all blaming Razork.
I watched that whole clip. If people don't know, the reason that clip's amazing is because Razork isn't alive in that clip. But even though on your screen you've just seen like the Jacks fuck up Oscar and Aid, you've seen Rekkles fuck up, they all just blamed Razork. It was like some old school TSM fans where it's always the jungler who gets the shit for everything that happens.
Well, the argument was because they're like, oh, well, it was Razork's call. It's like he's the one that's calling, but it's actually the right call. And he's the one that's dead. So normally when one person is dead, they're going to have the most accurate view of the game because they're literally just a spectator. They're just being the coach. They're like the IGL in that moment. So when you get into that situation, he's calling for everyone to end. They play it as bad as possible. And the Nexus lives with like 2 hits. It lives with 2 hits when they play it that fucking bad. So imagine if they play it better at all. Jax TP's a little bit later. Like Jax TP'd when they were on the inhibitor wave, but like he should TP when the wave gets to the Nexus. Then he should buy different items. He should buy like a blue pot. He should buy items to kill the Nexus. Like he's sitting on stopwatch and items that don't actually do anything when it comes to killing the Nexus. Then you see the fucking fail flash. The fail flash from Rekkles, Advian's not even hitting the fucking turret. Like Advian is doing some random shit where he's like trying to ignite the fucking rel or whatever. Like he's just walking at fucking hilly. Like it was just so weird to watch. And then I mean the only person that played it like a human at the end was Humanoid. So it was weird to see that Razork got so much flame when I thought that he actually outperformed Elyoya over the course of the series. Like I thought Elyoya had a pretty fucking bad series. So it's very strange to me that somehow people can watch that amount, those many mistakes. They can watch all those mistakes and then have the cognitive dissonance and then be like, yeah, the guy that's dead fucked it up. Like the guy that's dead, he made the decision that was right, but because they messed it up, that's his fault. So yeah. blame him. And then he actually saves the game after it, by the way. Like, he goes and he suicides for the wave so that they can't end the game in reverse after his whole team dies on the Nexus. Like, I don't know, man. It was just so weird to see the community go to that sense. I wouldn't even say the community, right? Because it's just a Fnatic sub, like Fnatic fans. But
it was just Fnatic fans for sure.
Yeah, it's just Fnatic fans. But dude, if I was Razork, man, I would not want to play for Fnatic anymore, because you literally get all the flame because, you know, you've had bad games. Admittedly, for Fnatic, you've had rough periods. Everyone's gonna blame you no matter what, apparently. And if you succeed, you're not going to get any of the credit either. It's going to be like, wow, look at how good Rekkles is now, or like Humanoid's back in form. It must suck to be in that position. It's like the epitome of just being a solo queue jungler, except now you're getting that amplified by hundreds of thousands of people.
Also, here's one of the things I think's nonsense is when people have fraudulent narratives. Like, I was told that one of the best things about Humanoid, you can see it on camera, is just his natural charisma. But that's not true at all. He's never charming at anyone. Never charmed anyone, mate. By the way, I don't know why that guy picks Ari specifically. Like, if you think about Humanoid champions, like, bro, this just isn't for you. Like, there's certain champions, if Humanoid plays, it's like, it just encourages him not to play properly somehow. I don't think that was the pick for him, man. I don't know why he went for it.
I mean, it's tough, right? Because you look at this game, and in any other circumstance, you'll be like, I mean, if you're watching any other league, you're like, damn, Fnatic got a absolute turbocharger. They got Wukong Ari. I mean, just think about the other like top teams around the world. When Genji gets Wukong Ari, you're like, damn, Chovy Ari, you know, Pito Wukong, this is looking good. We just watched JDG do the same thing. Wukong Ari. I mean, these are some of the strongest champions in the game right now. But yeah, Humanoid.
Not when you have two players who've never had any synergy ever at any point in time, ever in their lives, Tom.
Well, I don't even think that you need to have like specific synergy. It's like they're just two strong champions that can kind of do whatever in the game. I feel like that's what makes it, you know, a decent combo. But man, it was not good. It was not
also,
good
dude,
to play Ari.
Here's the worst part about that match as well. It was one of those matches that it's funny. This actually had started to happen to me with betting, Dom, which is obviously when you do betting, you do a prediction before the match that maybe in the match you feelings change. Maybe now you think this other team's playing well. Like whenever I was doing a bet, I'd have to watch the game and be like, oh shit, wait, I'm supposed to want the other team to win. Fuck, I have the bet on the underdog. You know what I mean? Like you're doing it just like an analyst, like, well, this is the better team. Lol, they're owning them. And so similar to that, right? The worst moment of this match for me, Dom, this is where I don't really get to actually get the win, guys, because you know what? You're all thinking, because the game almost ends immediately on the Rekkles flash, that, like, you know, the joke, by the way, guys, being that as they failed and then didn't lose the game and you all put F in chat, you were just copying your hero, pressing F when it didn't really do anything, you know, so whatever. Anyway, that's just a free bit. So what I was going to say, to bring it all the way back, is when I was watching the end of the game, here's the saddest thing of all, though, Dom, is that when they actually won Mad Lions, I realized, first things first, oh, fuck, wait, that means that whole, like, points thing gets activated. Second thought was, holy shit, this Mad Lions would be the one going MSI. The one that, by the way, let's be real, as we just discussed, probably should have lost this series. And then thirdly, here's why you can't even have some crazy outside hope that they're going to be good, Dom. Because if I give you this stat right now, you'll realize how doomed Mad Lions is. Do you know in that last game there, Dom, Kazi like broke the record for like kills in a game to win that dog shit game? Like, if that's what it takes to win a series, how am I supposed to believe, Dom, that I can put this team into like the MSI playoff bracket and just have like JDG, like, you know, Genji, like these teams would all murder this fucking squad. Like, it's so doomed, bro. It's so doomed. It's so doomed.
I mean, even just think about like, I mean, think about the fucking the second best teams coming out of those regions. Like, you think this team is beating T1 or like BLG? It's actually fucking doomed. Honestly, as somebody who's an NA fan, I'm just hoping for any type of success. I want to see Golden Guardians play against Mad Lions.
That would at least be interesting. Win. Yeah, that'll be an interesting match for sure, mate.
Because both of the teams have similar like strengths and weaknesses. So they're both pretty decent early game teams. They can get leads, but then they just are dog shit with closing out their leads. They just don't do anything when they actually have leads. So I think that would be an interesting match. On the Mad Lions point, I think the weirdest thing about watching them play is the fact that Mad Lions has been getting Jinx every single game when it just looks so OP in these dog shit games. Like when you're playing these low quality games, it feels like the team with Jinx is just winning every single time because it just scales. You know, there's going to be some fight where they're not able to kill the Jinx. It's going to clean up the whole thing. And when you look at the other things that Carzzy was playing, think about the series they played versus Vitality, the Mad Lion series, where he's just playing Lucian Nami every single game. Doesn't that look like a 10 times worse version of Mad Lions when Carzzy just has, has to play aggressively or he's like forced to dash forward? I don't know. When I'm looking at these games, I just feel like the drafting is super weird. Like, just don't give Carzzy Jinx anymore after he's surfed so many games. Like, there's so many weird things that I'm seeing in draft where teams are. I mean, I don't know if it's ego, but it just takes them too long to adapt. I mean, the other one that we'll talk about in a second is the Astralis giving Annie 3 times. Like, they played 4 games to get eliminated. 3 of them they played against Annie. Like, at some point, you just have to ban the champion that is clearly good into what your team is trying to do. For Mad Lions, it's not necessarily that Jinx is good into what other teams are trying to do. It's just the fact that Jinx is OP right now. When you look at games that are not played by even the best teams in the world, by the way, like completely smurf on Jinx, but especially when you look at like tier 2 regions or lower quality games, you never want to be on the side of the Aphelios versus Jinx if you are not one of like the top teams in your region. So the Jinx just always wins these games. So I feel like you got to get Carzzy off Jinx at a point. And the answer, like the Sivir answer to Jinx, just is so miserable. That's such a terrible, terrible answer, which is obviously something that Fnatic went to just because it's a Rekkles champion. He's one of the best Sivir players in EU. So that's why they go for it. But if you think about stylistically, the only thing that Sivir provides is like, all right, I give some movement speed to the guys that are going to try to kill the Jinx. But in terms of any type of front to back fight, like I am insanely outranged by this champion. So it's very difficult to actually win these games from this position when you're giving over such a powerful pick. And it's also one of the things where like the reason why Jinx is so good into bad teams is because bad teams are uncoordinated and somebody is going to fuck up and die at some point. If you die and you give Jinx a reset, it is just the best fucking champion in the entire game. So especially if you're playing with players that are like fine, but might make mistakes, like Advien, for example, you don't want to have the whole fight rely on, oh, does he just like make a positioning error? Oh, one small positioning error, we're all dead. Who wants to fucking play that game? I just feel like the drafting from Fnatic could definitely just make their job so much easier in the series.
By the way, before I forget, this is how mental that whole Rekkles, like Mad Lions Fnatic end of the game is, Dom. That there was a third detail I'd forgotten till I just remembered now, because it must be mentioned. Because here's also why I have no faith in Mad Lions at all. No, everyone else is going to forget this, Dom. But like, if you remember, when Fnatic was just coming in the base, and at the time nobody was up, obviously all the casters were even saying like, they're going to end the game. And then if you remember, do you remember who the first player to spawn was, Dom? Who was the first player to spawn? Do you remember?
The first player to spawn?
From Mad Lions.
From Mad Lions. First player to spawn. So I know. So Hilly was alive. Do you mean that?
Yeah, sorry, it was Hilly. Sorry. He was alive then. Maybe he was just on the base or whatever.
Okay, but if you know, I think he respawned but super early. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, then maybe that was it. But I remember he was the only one, right? And in that scenario, if you ever look, they're about to destroy one Nexus tower. There's one Nexus tower left and the base, right? So you think in that scenario, remember he was even playing Rel. You would think the obvious thing you do there, Dom, is you just try and essentially get yourself killed. You just jump into the group, you get them all to target you, save a couple of seconds. Does anyone remember what Hylissang did? What Hylissang did was walk around and then just ignite Advien, the other support, like he was still in lane at level 2. He just ignited him, just by the way, didn't he kill him? Just let him burn, and then just watched the base being taken. This guy's actually on some Nero fiddling while Rome burns level shit. I ignited him though. He's actually doing Reddit memes in official games. It's not about the move, it's about the message that it sends. Hylissang, it isn't about the message. This is actually the game-winning play of the series. You do know if you lose this game, you're out of the fucking LEC. There's no MSI. There's none of that shit. Why are you doing shit like that? Why would he use the ignite? Because this what's mad about that was it's he was going for a kill or something, Dom. He's the game's over. I just want to kill anyway. Yeah, save the game.
I mean, look,
save the game, bro. What?
I just rewatched it, and
it's mad, isn't it? It's so mad, isn't it?
All I'm saying is that was actually a solo kill. He's the one that ends up killing the Thresh, so that goes in.
He did get the kill. Fair enough. Okay, right?
Yeah, he ended up getting the solo kill off his W when he W'd into the whole enemy team. So that goes in the stats. I know that casters and production love stats. So when they bring up his solo kill number as support, where it's dude, how many supports have solo kills in general? Hilly's got 75 all time. Like that's what he's playing for right there. It's clearly he's just trying to up his solo kill number for narrative purposes.
Because by the way, I'll just say it now, Tom. The reason I've always held back a little bit on Hylissang is I always did have that feeling like Malrang of like everyone's giving you credit because you're doing all these god tier genius. Like, wow, we saw the player that no one else even knew existed, and they're thinking you're doing that, Dom, because you're in the best team and you can take those edges to like put them. But you can say, you know what everyone used to say about Hylissang was like he's like the X factor, isn't he? If you play like a top even international team, maybe he'll just pop off and do a crazy play and win you the game. But the problem is, just like Malrang, he'll also do this even when his team's bad guys. He'll just do this shit anyway. It's just who he is as a player. I can tell in a fucked up way. Hylissang probably does have like a really pure view on League. Like, he just looks like he genuinely really loves playing it, but he just plays it instinctively, you know. To me, I don't think he's calculated any of this shit, man. I think he's just got a mad feeling, just goes for it. He just essentially, he just seems like he never says no to himself. He just goes, yes, go. The answer is yes, go, you know.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely a field-based player. I don't mind it though. Like I feel like he's had a good enough. If you look at his totality of his first 6 months, I feel like
it's fine. You wouldn't kick him from the team, mate. No,
yeah, you wouldn't kick him from the team. And then overall, I think he's performed as probably like the fourth best support in EU, something like that. If you go across the entire both splits. And then I mean he had some mega series to get Mad Lions into like if people are gonna say, oh, Mad Lions is an MSI, bro, how the fuck did they make MSI? I mean, one of the main reasons they made MSI is because of that run, because of those Hilly Rel games. Think about the fucking Rel game that he played versus SK in game number 5 when Karzi was Omega sprinting it, where he's just hitting 3-man engages over and over again, and the game just ends based off him. So he's probably one of the players that deserves the most credit for, I don't know if people are going to take this negatively, for getting Mad Lions to MSI if they go.
The Best Damn League Show, period, is brought to you in association with FreezePipe. Now, I've had to freeze my Vitality hype because they couldn't handle the smoke BDS were bringing. If you were hoping to see Upset carry the day and reach another LEC final, you, like me, no doubt ended up frustrated and a little hurt. Kind of like when you smoke weed through a regular bong. Well, let FreezePipe put matters right by ordering one with the code LFN for 10% off your order at thefreezepipe.com. You can just take the glycerin chamber and put it in the freezer for about an hour, enough time for Vitality to be halfway to losing a playoff series nowadays. And it will cool your smoke more than Bo cooled off against BDS. Over 300 degrees in this case. So if you want to try a different way to smoke cannabis that's much more enjoyable, smoother, without that hot irritation of getting smoking lungs, check out thefreezepipe.com. They currently have their 420 sale going on. And by the way, on the Last Free Nation channel, you can see some fun 420 content we did in association with FreezePipe. Right, then you already mentioned it. Like, let's do the Astralis topic, right? Because it wasn't just Fnatic. If it would already have been a travesty if Fnatic had won, but at least Astralis probably would beat them. I can't believe Astralis has lost this series, Dom. Like, everything for me was set up for them to win. Everything was looking great going into this. And also, like, the main obvious win condition of Kobe, he turned up. Like, I actually feel so bad this year for, like, in this, like, I guess I don't feel that bad for Crowley anymore because he's in the bloody finals. He's doing great. But, like, take Crowley off for a second. It's people like Yankos, Kobe. I feel so bad for these players, mate. Like, every game, pretty much, I feel like Kobe just does really well now. Like, he's almost smurfing every game. Like, even if these games that they lost, like, bro, he's doing the best he can. Like, sometimes, for real, his team is griefing him, Dom. Like, they're doing that shit as an ADC that drives you wild where they just fight without your ult, or like fucking when you've just like you still got to summon it down, they just force a group fight like no reason. Oh, and as you say in the draft, they're just giving Annie a champion, which like the whole point of that champion is like it's fucking autopilot if you know what you're doing. Like the whole thing tilted me so hard, bro. I feel like they fucked up on every level. Astralis said they should have won this series, as in they could have.
I feel like Astralis. I mean, when you watch Astralis, you feel bad for Kabi, but you know who I really feel bad for, Thorin? I feel bad for the better AD than Crowdy, X-Matty. The fact that he was able to, play with this team and he was better. Like, think about it. He's just better than Crowdy. As we saw, like, he started all of last year, no matter what Crowdy did. And now you see BDS having all this success and you think, man, what would happen if X-Matty was there, They would just have a little bit more success. They would probably just have won the LEC already at this point. They wouldn't even play the final match. So, yeah, I feel bad for X-Matty over anyone because it's just been rough for him, man. And I don't know if he's going to get a shot again.
Dude, you know the real problem, like you're doing it sarcastically, obviously, but like the actual real point that connects to that is that's an area where I don't even blame those coaches totally. Like if people don't know, that was obviously a Grabs take, but it's quite similar if you think to like how Peter Dunn defended the Heretics players, etc. The real problem these guys have is this, Dom, is if they're talking solely outside of the game about like other coaching concepts, like obviously Grabs' point about X-Matty was like, he brings like a different culture to the team and he's really try-harding. Like the problem they have is this. I feel like they've taken a sports concept that doesn't make sense in League of Legends or esports, Dom, which is, you'll know this. You know, in the NBA, the most famous player ever for this, because he's still around now, was fucking Udonis Haslem from the Heat, where obviously the whole premise was years after he was actually good, he would just keep him on the team because he's literally an example of a super veteran who's going to show all the young guys, like, don't fuck around in like the strip club or spend your money on stupid shit or be here on time for practice, like listen to the coach, right? The reason that works though, guys, is because an NBA or an NFL roster has loads of extra people on the bench who sometimes don't ever play. So what you do is you get that veteran and you put him there. The problem in this case, Peter Dunn and Grabs, is this is like you were still starting Udonis Haslem in 2020 when he's mega fucking washed. Meanwhile, we're just telling you, like, look, actually me and Dom are just going like, look, I agree. I know he has like extra qualities, but he's really bad at like small forward or power forward or whatever he plays. Like, you got to actually get someone competent at that role. And then they're like, no, but bro, you don't understand. Like in the locker room though, it's like, yeah, but on the game court, we're getting killed. Because someone actually on my Discord went back on that episode with Peter Dunn where we had him defend Heretics all the way back the last split. And dude, what's hilarious is he actually is such a legit guy that when he himself defended them, he actually built in a disclaimer, which, spoiler, just gets activated and was right, but he didn't mean it. He said something like that he thought it was language problems were causing Ruby and Ebby's problems. And that, he said something like, so if it's just language problems, which is obviously what he thought, then it'll improve. And as the splits go on, they'll get better and better. And then he put in, like, just as a disclaimer, to be fair, like intellectually honest, he goes like, but I guess if it's like a game knowledge issue, then they'll just get worse and worse. And then it'll just go really badly. Well, it's like, you nailed it. Yeah, that's it. Yep, that's it. Yeah, even though it's sad because he didn't know he was wrecking himself. Like, yeah, that is why. So unfortunately, I know what you mean on that one. Like, the problem with the X-Matty one is it's like, that just sounds good on paper as a reason. Like, in the game, he was fucking shit, wasn't he? And spoiler, we all could see Crownshot was way better at the time. Let's be real. You know what I mean?
I love the fucking
way
shit.
Better.
Like you tried to set it up like you're gonna say something. You could tell that Crownie was just a better player. But you're like, yeah, you could just tell that Fnatic that X-Matty was just fucking.
He just
shit.
was, bro. The problem I had with that player was this: is that I don't know. Like I'll ask about like big name players. I don't ever ask about like small name. Like, what's going on with this guy? I just watch the game. So he was just, at best he was lackluster. At best there was just nothing going on. If you know what I mean. Like, but there wasn't anything positive.
To me, it was just the worst.
Yeah,
AD
like
carry
what was it like? What was it like?
I mean, everything that people tell you about him is it's like good things, but at some point it doesn't apply. So
yes,
like the concept of like the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset, where you're like, oh, you can have somebody that's really talented, but if they are like somebody who mainly just cares about they're very results driven and they're not constantly trying to improve, like eventually they're going to hit a cap. And somebody with the growth mindset that's constantly analyzing their play and cares more about improvement over time and getting better rather than results, like they're gonna just be a more attractive person to coach because they have, in theory, unlimited potential. I think that X-Matty probably has a really good mindset, but if somebody has a fixed mindset and they're a fucking all-star, of course you're going to take them over like season 22 Udonis Haslem, who like spends 95% of the game on the floor whenever he gets subbed in. So I mean,
and also, you know what? I'll repurpose a joke that I used in Counter-Strike because obviously there's not that much overlap. So basically, Dom, there was a weird scenario happened in 2020 where when the great Brazilian player Fallen, who everyone knows like a super legendary player, he's still one of the most famous players now in CS:GO, when he was still on the team when it was called MIBR, which is obviously like the one that they made in CS:GO to like celebrate Brazilian heritage in esports and stuff. When he was on that team, I did like a show or something where Semler, like one of the casters who works for me, he actually works for S3E13 Nation, if people don't know. He said some line like, oh, like MIBR, because he was himself a fan of them when they used to be really great a couple of years earlier. He was like, oh, they need to work like a lot harder and like put in more hours. Like they're so off the pace, they're not that good in the game. And the Fallen guy, right, had the audacity not only to get mad at that statement, Dom, but he got mad in this way. He goes, like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, we're not like occupied with other things. Like, we're putting in all the hours. We're putting in so much time and effort. And so I just said,
like,
you can see where this is going. Retire. Exactly, mate. You can see where this is going. So I just let him say all this shit. And I just said to him, like, Fallen, that all sounds great. But I'll ask the obvious question then. If you're doing all that, why are you shit? And he didn't have an answer because obviously he didn't realize he paid himself. I'd say the same thing, Dom. If Grabs comes to me and he goes, you know what, this ex-Matty guy, I need him for the culture of the team. He's in there every fucking day. You don't understand. He's like old school Kobe, Dom. He's the first to arrive. He's the last to leave. He's putting in extra hours. It's like the end of the statement, Grabs. Why is he shit? Why is he shit in League of Legends? Like, if he's actually playing more than everyone, haven't you actually, like, mathematically proven he's really bad at League of Legends? Like, by your own logic, there's nothing more he could do. Best attitude, trying, reviewing VODs. This motherfucker's probably in, like, a cryogenic thing, gets nuts frozen or some shit. Then he's, like, drinking fucking tea, any type of Tibetan tea, fucking Indian tea, some shit from any country, Greenland, he'll go anywhere, mate. He's probably taking all, like, nootropics to expand his mind and stuff. And at the end, he logs into the game, like, step forwards. I just got autoed. Oh, shit. It's like, yeah, back to the fucking lab, isn't it? Like, just get a good player. Because actually, I have a real topic we can spin this into. Because I'll tell you what this does actually, does make me think about is this. Dude, look at some of the players in the LEC that have had success in the last, like, 6 to 9 months or so, right? Think of these 3 players. Comp won the LEC last year. Crowny is in the finals, by the way, with on paper one of the worst teams to ever make the finals in terms of player names, not in terms of actual strength. They're very good. But obviously no one expected BDS to be there with their roster this year. And then Leader is the whole reason Astralis was in position to themselves, maybe even be in the playoffs. Dude, these 3 players were perfect victims of narratives and exactly the stuff we're talking about with coaches. Coaches sort of thinking like, look, yeah, they have some skills at the game or whatever, but, you know, I'm going to choose this guy because he's a rookie and maybe he will be better than them. Or I'm going to choose this guy because he just works better with the team. It's like these 3 players are just all really good mechanical League of Legends players. Think of the names I just said there, guys. Comp, Crowdy, and Leader. Like, the whole point is these are the guys you just drop in a team and go, just fucking play League, mate. Just do it. Like, and if you had actually taken these guys 1 split in and just done the Reddit narrative thing, or 2 splits in and gone, right, they're out, where would all the talent be now? Like, these players are the LEC right now, guys. These are some, I mean, Comp's not in great form, but like I say, he won last year. Like, you can't abandon talent like that. Like, that feels like you're using, like, narrative reasons over gameplay reasons. Like, I agree, include narrative reasons. They are important in my opinion. You want to know what personality someone has, if they fit the team, but it can't, like, supersede the gameplay reason, dude. Like, the gameplay reason has to be number 1, surely.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. When I look at this BDS team, I think the worst mistake people are making is they're giving a bunch of credit to the management. They're like, oh, look at the management. Like, they were able to, like, keep these players together. And I think the players deserve a lot of credit. I think the coaching staff deserves a lot of credit. But it feels like BDS did everything in their power to not allow these players to play. Like, when you hear all the narratives about how the players were playing last year and, like, oh, well, like, some certain players were better than others, but, you know, they like the attitude of certain players. It feels like almost BDS sabotaged this team. That's number 1. Number 2, I don't know where this idea came from that BDS is a team of rookies. Like, I've
why
heard
do people say that? I don't know.
They're like, look at this, like, young team of rookies. It's like, wait, Crowny came in 2019.
Yep.
This is Adam's been
Labrov's been here years, by the way.
Yeah,
years.
Labrov has been since what, 2020? I think, like May.
Yeah, he came in with when he first
came in. Yeah. I mean, it's just very weird to, like, hear this narrative of them being, like, rookies. It's just they've just had bad careers up until this point. Like, they've just been bottom feeders.
Well, that's the real joke there, Dom. All the people who want to flame me who are fans of, like, Nook. The joke is you guys actually don't know there was a player called Nuclear Int. You think this is a rookie that's really good. You didn't have to see fucking Knock Sock and fucking Nuclear Int be a bint. Like, you don't even know what that means. It's a British slang for a whore, basically. But yeah.
Jeez.
It's all good. Okay. So I'm just working with the deep bag here, you know.
All right.
No, but by the way, I definitely agree, though. Here's the saddest thing. This is also, by the way, where fans are just always so feckless, Dom. Because you know this, right? They all think, because I essentially just don't believe Nook's actually this good, they think that I've, like, low-key hated on BDS the whole split. You can go back watch any episode, mate. I've actually been bang on with it. I've given them credit the whole split. Like, how could you not, by the way? They were number 1 in the BO1s. In the BO3s, they've won every series, including against top teams. And basically, even if I say like, oh, I don't think Nook's actually that good in the future or on a worse team, it's not really relevant to now. He isn't in the future. He's on a different team. So like right now, I agree with you. Like the thing about BDS is actually very easy to like this team because think about it. First of all, they have a really coherent identity. I love that in League of Legends, by the way. I like teams that I can understand how they play. Secondly, and this is a big deal, it might sound like I'm hating them because I'm low-key hating them, but I don't actually know much about the Nook guy, by the way. I don't have anything, aside from what he's now flaming, I don't really have anything to hate on him for. I would say this, I actually think the fact that some of their players I don't believe are the actual best players in their position suggests also that this team does, so it must be like well composed because it actually feels like they do cover each other's weaknesses a bit, you know. Like, listen, they still do have those odd moments that we've discussed in the past. But aside from that, they just look like if you took the nameplates off, they just are one of the best teams in LEC. There's no disputing it. They should be in the final. It's totally fine.
They look like the best team. They look like the team that should be coming out of the winter bracket finals. And, you know, every time they run up against a opponent where you think, oh, well, stylistically, this should be difficult for them. Like people, you got to remember, people had them potentially not even making it out of the group stage. Like people thought that if Koi got their shit together, Koi and G2 could just end up going. You know, like that was realistic. At that point, even like SK, for example, because of SK outplacing them and the fact that BDS played poorly in the best of three portion of winter, where it really felt like teams were able to figure them out and be able to just kind of download what their playstyle was and draft against it. Because that happened in the last split, it seemed like BDS, like they were gonna have a tough time in this stage. But I think the one thing that's been happening is that they've been able to eliminate that main catastrophe that they would have every game. When you look at the games versus Vitality, it's like they almost have the catastrophe. They have the moment for the catastrophe, but they don't actually have the full-on catastrophe. Where you see like a better team might be able to exploit that, but they didn't, so fuck it, you know? Whereas before, BDS would just make a horrible decision and all die. So even though like they would have like the moment versus Vitality in game one, where suddenly they're trading like inhibitors off, and it looks like Vitality might randomly end the game, even though they don't even have a kill yet. Like they might have won a game without getting one kill. That might be one of the only times that's ever happened in the history of League of Legends, to win a game without getting one kill. So you see those types of moments and you're like, I guess like a better team could exploit that, but BDS is not all dying, at least, and their team fighting has gotten a lot better, because that was where I felt like a lot of their main issues would come from, is that they would have a really, really bad team fight. They would just fuck up positioning, or somebody would get flanked, and they would walk into an area where they just couldn't walk, and Crowdy would just get one shot, and suddenly the whole game would just be lost. So I haven't seen that in a while from BDS. So hopefully, you know, going forward, they're able to just eliminate that, and they just end up being a really strong LEC team, because I feel like they're such a good team to test if other teams are legitimately good.
Yes.
Because they're going to play their champions. You know what they're going to do. And a lot of the times, BDS is going to be in situations that are suboptimal. They're going to have a Darius into a fucking Gnar or some shit going full tank. Like, that is not a winning situation for later on in the game. But if you're not able to exploit that, like, at all, sure. I'm completely down to see BDS keep on, like, you know, just showing that these teams are not good yet. And the person that stepped up the most has been Nuck. Like, he's the person that in regular season was kind of invisible. Like, Adam was doing his thing, Crowdy was doing his thing, Shea was smurfing some games, and Nuck was kind of just playing Azir and just existing. But now he's just playing better than all the other mids in LEC, which is still so mind-blowing. Because if you think about the other players, if you're like, all right, we're going to be in a final, let's say fucking G2 makes the final, we're going to have a final of Nuck versus Caps. It's so hard to just mentally be like, so Nuck is like so I should expect Nuck to play better than Caps in this final. Like, that's what you should go into it with based on the play. It just does. It's so hard to do, because you always feel like if you doubt Caps, it's going to be the biggest mistake of your life. Like, if you doubt Caps and then he just comes into the final and just smurfs, you'd be like, yeah, of course you fucking smurfed. It's Caps. Like, why wouldn't he smurf? But I mean, Nuck is just, he has the entire champion pool. He's playing the Casio when it's good for his team. He plays it extremely well. Like, his Syndra looked good.
Syndra was good,
He's able to pretty much play all the control mages that you need. So now that Azir is removed, he can still have the same identity, and it's almost like he's better at the other champions than he was at the Azir. So I mean, BDS just looked like the best team, like by far too. It doesn't even look like it's that close between them and the second best team currently. So I don't know. It's really strange to watch teams draft into BDS, because it feels like BDS is still getting the picks that they want, but at the same time, you're like, I mean, do you really have to ban Darius if you're going to pick Gnar for like one of like the best top laners in LEC? I don't
Oh,
know.
that's
It
the
just seems-
trap, right? Like, because on paper you would say just ban the Adam champions, but I'm with you. If you can actually get one of the best possible one, sometimes you have to just take the strength and hope you just win the game. Because I agree with you, Dom. You actually said it perfectly. It's like, essentially, it's like that analogy years and years ago on that Crackdown episode that Febevan said. You remember when he said that, like, he himself didn't think that LeBlanc was actually that good a champion at the time. But essentially, like, if it works in LEC, he's going to play it. Like, he's just going to play it if they don't know how to stop it. I agree. It's the same thing with BDS. That's why you're actually quite right. Like, they do a good job at essentially testing. Like, are you an elite team who can punish the other team's comp and win conditions? If you can't, then BDS is going to beat you. Like you say, unless they themselves do the cadastry and give you a way back in the game, they just roll over you. And by the way, I definitely agree on the team fighting part. The difference is, like I say, for me, Crownie and Cobby have both almost had like good games every good game this split or this year, it feels like. The difference is, though, Astralis is way more hit and miss if they play around Cobby and actually play. Crownie actually looks like they know, dude, they know he's the best player in that team. It's just obvious. Like, they play around it. There's even an angle I'll say on the Nook angle. It's not like he forces it. He doesn't try and make himself the fucking hero. He just plays out like a boring ass mage game and just does his job, and he's actually carrying because all the team players. And actually, the player I do want to ask you about as a jungler is obviously Shio, because I saw Kay's made a tweet about this. I hadn't thought about it because in my brain I'm still thinking of Shio as the player from last split, but he actually said, like, don't we actually probably have to put this guy in like an all-pro conversation? Wouldn't he maybe be like the third or fourth best jungler? It's a fair discussion to have now, right?
I think if you do all pro and it's based off all the playoffs too, like the way they do it, I mean, if he does well in the final, he just has to win it, like, essentially, because he's had too many good games in a row. And for all pro, I mean, you're just doing performance of the split. So I feel like he would just be first all pro if they just end up doing if they end up just winning the split, because he's had so many good games, and then the games that he's played really well in all matter a lot. You know, like, he's playing the best.
Oh,
in
he
the
looks
games.
very decisive. Yeah, he's done some really good plays for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, the problem that I see with Sheo, and I think this is just from watching him before, is I feel like he's like limited. Like, he plays the meta really well, but I feel like if you did something like you see in LPL or LCK, where there's like a million jungle bans and he has to go into like the fifth best jungler, he has to go deep into the bag, I feel like he would just get outperformed by some of these other guys. Like, I don't think that he is somebody who has like super wide champion pool, but I think that his best champions, like, I mean, even from last year, when Vi started coming into the meta in ERLs, he was like one of the best Vi's instantly. Like, that was just a champion that just worked for him. And I feel like he's more on the side of being like a smart jungler rather than being some like insane mechanical talent. And he's perfected the junglers that are good right now. So right now he's a fucking beast, because you have like Sejuani, Maokai that he's good at, Vi, Wukong. Like, he's not getting mechanics checked by any of these junglers. Like, they can't even do it with the picks, and he's just playing the game better. Like, he's just smart about what he does in the game. I still have the reservation where I don't think that he'll be good in like other metas. Like, if we go into another one of those like Elise, Lee Sin metas or Rek'Sai or these types of champions where you actually need to like snowball games super fucking hard in the early game, I don't know if he'd be able to outperform other junglers then. But in terms of the meta that we're in right now, it feels like he's somebody who gets better with time on champions. He needs more time than others to perfect champions, but once he like can perfect them, he gets them to a higher level than other players. And it seems like he's just very, very comfortable right now in everything that he's playing.
The problem I have is this, Dom. Like, here's where I'll explain to people one of my analytical lenses, because I used to use this in CSGO a lot, which is it's actually from pure experience. Back in the day, oftentimes people will know a lot of my favorite players and teams are the ones that are like Koi. It's like they're good, they're clearly good, but something just like tortures them, they don't quite win. And I'm always trying to be the guy who figures out like, when are they going to get over the hump? When are they going to win finally? But I will say, as a result, teams like that have taught me over the years when to be cautious. And so unfortunately, I am going to just do the same thing if people don't know. Like, even though BDS won this match and went to the final, I am still going to assume in the final they might play worse, or nerves might get to them, or experience might be a factor. The problem is, and this is where it gets interesting for this split, is for that to really matter, I'm going to have to see someone come out of the lower bracket and look really fucking good, though. Like, you can't just be bad and limp into the final, and then for me just go, right, BDS, like, you're not going to win that. No, because right now they would win. So the point is, I need to see either G2 or Vitality, because it's not going to be fucking Mad Lions. Let's all shut the fuck up about that, right? Obviously, this is the scenario. Like, we need one of those two teams. If one of those two teams look really strong in the lower bracket, I'll still pick them to win the final. It's not even haterism, guys. It's nothing to do with how BDS has played. This is purely based on the fact that in history, people just get worse when they're in the big pressure game. They haven't so far, fair play. They've nailed it. But this is the segue, because the obvious reason why it was also so easy for BDS is because Vitality, this is one of the worst fucking series, well, forget series, just sets of games they played, the whole split, bro. Like, it feels like, here's the thing, Vitality, I've made this point in the BO1s, Dom. If you ever go and look at the 3 games Vitality lost, not only were they the 3 best teams in the league, but some of them were like close games or winnable or like really close. These games were fucking a disgrace, mate. Like, Vitality actually looked for real half as good as in their normal games. Like even players who you expect, like, I would expect I could bank on Photon to be consistent. Dude, he was crap. What the fuck? This is one of the worst times I've ever seen him play League. Perks was just okay or whatever most of the time. Like, Upset couldn't even get in the game. Like, oh, this was across the board. Kaiser had some screamers. Like,
Bo ran it down.
Oh, yeah, Bo was. Everyone hoped Bo would be like smurfing. He was the last series. He fucking wasn't this one. He had some terrible games. Like, the problem with this is this, Dom. People are waiting with Vitality. We put a lot of the pressure on there. They want to believe they either are the best team or they're total frauds. For me, they're clearly neither. It's like they're somewhere in between the two. So I want to ask you is this: what do you think of the determining factors are? Like, for our BDS, for example, do they just have their number? Do they just match up well? Does it turn out? Is BDS just the counter to Vitality, or is something going on with Vitality in your opinion? Because I don't believe they play at this in the low bracket, mate. I think they come back.
When I look at Vitality in these games, it's just like, I don't know what happens when the pressure is on, but they look so much worse mechanically across the board that it's very hard to just know like what the reason for it is, because Bo just had like one of the best mechanical series we've seen from a jungler versus 113, where he completely dicked 113. And then he just comes into this and like he's missing Wukong cues. Like, dude, that is like literally a point and click ability. You can turn on target champions only and you can't fuck that up. And ever since that dive, like top lane, it just felt like the whole game is just weird. It's like, damn, bro, are they just they're just worse, like across the board? They're just worse players too. Then their team fighting is worse and everything as well. Their macro is worse. Upset is literally getting behind in these games. Like if you look at game 1, he's getting behind off pure macro. Like the fact that BDS is able to rotate, take turrets, Aphelios gets super ahead, like the Jinx is swapping, just falling 2k gold behind before they're able to do anything. I think it's really weird to see how they ended up playing this series. But then yeah, I think that the top lane situation was just very weird for them, where they try really hard to counter the I mean, they play 3 range champions, right? They play 3 range champions into Adam's champion pool. They don't leave up the Olaf, which they had like a counter to before. They play the Akshan game 1, which is gonna completely alter the way that your team wants to play the game. If you think about how BDS is playing the game, they know how to play with Darius. Even if Darius is behind, they just are aware of what it does. Akshan is a very weird champion, and it's not a champion that I feel like you could just plug and play and know all the strengths of. Like being able to calculate fights and like, oh, well, this fight could be good because we can get the revive, and that's going to be a massive tempo advantage. Like all these things are going to matter. It's not as easy as just plug and play. Like he'll win lane, and we'll win the game. So that was fucking weird. And then you just see like game 2, Photon goes to the Kennen. And then he's getting solo killed by Sion as Kennen, even when he's building specifically to counter the Sion. I mean, what I tweeted during the game is I was like, wow, like this guy, the problem was he played for T1, but he tried to take all the elements of Zeus's game. He really used it as a true training experience, where then he's like, okay, so in the big moments, I'm supposed to play like shit as well? Okay, all right, got that one, wrote it down in the notepad, and then he just delivers it in LEC. It's like, at some point, man, we if you're going to be the best top at LEC, you have to be able to beat Adam when you're getting counter picks at least. Like maybe you can't beat him in like a really close skill matchup that involves like Olaf or something. But if you're getting a hard counter pick, you could at least beat his Sion. Maybe you can't beat his Darius and Olaf, but you can't beat his Sion with Kennen. Like that's just really tough to watch. So
exactly. Also, we fucking meme on Adam. How are you going to let Adam have the last laugh? Like in this scenario, Adam could even have like swagged on Photon and be like, I heard they call you Photon. Is that because you are light work? Not bad.
Okay.
Not bad. It's decent. It was, whatever. You throw them out there. It all land. That one did though. It landed like a motherfucker. No, that's the saddest thing as well.
Do people actually like take science? Do they know? They
probably don't sadly know what a photon is. I know they're like, isn't he at the top lane? And like, no, I told you, Billy, this is fucking physics class. Stop bringing up League of Legends. Which, by the way, sadly, right there, Jacob's probably already writing down the idea for a shit skit. Just do what I just said there, basically. It's better than doing like a movie skit which lasts 7 minutes. So
he's got some time.
Let's bring it back. Because here's the problem. I won't lie, Dom. I'll just tell you the playbook. I keep it real, mate. I'm not fake. Don't worry. If BDS had lost this series, don't worry. I was going to, like, 1 second after they lost, just whatever, if Nook tweeted, I was going to tweet, like, lol, suck my dick. I was going to tweet some shit at Adam. Like, you know, I was going to do the same joke again, Dom, but it'd be like, oh, see ya, Adam. Oh, sorry, you saw me waving. You don't understand. You know, I'd have done that whole thing again. There's a lot of material. Sadly, though, I have to just give them props. They just fucking murked this whole game. And it does bring me back to the vitality thing, which is this. I'm not going to bail on them now, Dom. First of all, I'll just put this out there. I've never understood people, by the way, who, while like a series is going on or before their team's eliminated, are like, oh, they're playing so badly, I'm out on them. It's like, what? Like, why were you ever supporting them then? Like, you wait till you're dead before you give up, you fucking idiot. But then the other reason why is, it's like you say, people played so individually badly in this series that, look, it's possible it can happen again, but I don't believe it. Like, I think even a bad game for Vitality looks better than most of these fucking games. Because like I said about the upset angle, people are going to want to make it like, oh, and I bet your favourite players, Perks, and Upset was shit. No, Upset just never had a chance to play League of Legends. Like, if I was playing this game, I'd be so irritated and frustrated. It's like, when do I ever get into this game? When do I get a chance to actually have like a vaguely even footing fight where I can do my job? You can't. You never got a chance to, not least because, like we're saying, top side of the map, fuck the game. And also, that's the other thing. That's why the action one tilted me so much, dude. Because that almost implies to me, this is pure speculation, like maybe Vitality knew they were the underdog, or maybe they've been losing scrims to them or something. Because, dude, that's like such a tricky champion to get to work. Like, as you said, first of all, like even in lane, it's tricky when you have to babysit it, when you don't. Then I've even seen, like, obviously your boy fucking Broken Blade used to play it all the time. Even if you play the champion well, doesn't mean your team can play around the champion. It's actually quite tricky. It isn't just some fucking autopilot shit. Like, I'd much rather have someone just on some basic shit like an R. Like, why wouldn't you? Sion, everyone knows how these champions play out in the team fight. For me, the whole series almost seems like Vitality knew they were taking chances, mate. I don't know what's going on with this team.
I think that it's also weird, the progression of the series, because it feels like you'd open with the Gnar. Like, you'd open with the Gnar in this type of series. You'd open with the like standard range top liner, and then if that wasn't working and you're down 0-2, maybe that's when you pull out something a little bit riskier, the Akshan, like the Hail Mary. But I felt like the team was in such a bad mindset from the first game, because the first game they were just doing nothing. Like they didn't get a kill the entire fucking game. They didn't do anything the entire game.
Dude, imagine if we were actually trying to hype this game for someone who never watched League. Like, say they came from CSGO or fucking StarCraft. Right? We would be hyping it like this, bro. We would be like, bro, first of all, this is like two of the best teams in Europe right now. They're really good. Now, this Team Vitality, you're going to love this, guys. They've got all the stars, all the mechanical geniuses. They've got this. And then you do all that, and then the game went, and then on BDS, you'd be like, they're like the plucky up-and-comers. Obviously, the bullshit thing, like you, they're all rookies. They're all 2 years old. They're fetuses. They just came out the womb and they're winning. Wow, oh my God, first ever to the final. We do all that, right? But they're still not as skilled players. They've got to work together as a team. Then you watch this game. If you took the nameplates off, the team was 0 kills. That's the one we're all hyping as the mechanical super team. Like, listen, we just look stupid now. Thanks, Vitality. Cheers.
I mean, it was tough to watch, but I mean, like, to be honest, that's how the games look right now versus BDS if you don't mechanically outplay them. Because in terms of like their macro, they just even though they have like basic macro, like they don't do anything super complicated. They're not like Gen G where they're like, all right, we're giving this Drake, but like we've prepared to give this Drake 2 minutes in advance, or like Chobi's already in the side lane and we're taking enemy jungle camp, so we've just gained like a 3k gold lead for you doing this Drake. They don't have some like genius macro like that. Yep. They're like, oh, we play strong lanes, we win our lanes, and then we show up to the Drake when we're like ahead of you, and we just take every single Drake. Like, that was pretty much it. That was like BDS's strategy, and they're just winning the lanes. Also, I think another point I wanted to bring up is I don't really like the Vitality like upset on Jinx angle. I think it just doesn't work for them. It's not like Carzzy where you just want to have him exist and then hope that he can like contribute something to the fight. I feel like this team looks the best. Like, I was looking for Lucia Nami angles. That's what I wanted to see out of this team. I want to see Upset like giving agency so he can actually make plays, push people out, like smurf on people in lane. I've always thought that was like the best version of Vitality, when it looks like, oh, we have this like really strong bot lane that maybe doesn't scale as well as the enemy bot lane, but they're going to be able to use their advantage. I just don't like seeing the bot lane like sit back and farm. So I don't know. It's hard for me to believe in them after like what we saw. Like, it's very hard for me to be like, oh yeah, I think they're gonna make it back. Like, I still think that they could be better than how they played, but
you think G2 is gonna beat them?
Are we just assuming that G2 is gonna beat Mad Lions? Yes. Okay.
So surely we are. Because here's the other reason why, Dom. There's a logical reason why we should assume it. Because if Mad Lions beats G2, like at that point, probably should just shut the show down. Like there is no analysis. Like, you know, it's a random game. It's just you throw fucking names in a hat. I know, like at that point, essentially, here's the way I'll say it. It's like, who would want to live in that way? It's like this joke I once told Anders, right? If people might vaguely know this reference, right? Anders from CSGO was one of those people who really early got into all crypto stuff, right? And so all the crypto bros that are all obsessed with it and they just believe it like a religion, Dom. He was telling me how one day, you know, like all fiat currencies will go to zero, and if he has this, I won't say which one, but if he has this particular one, it'll become like the new reserve currency of the world, and then he'll essentially be like instantly like he'll almost be like one of those Arab sheiks, Dom. Tomorrow he'll just be like rich. And I said to him, yeah, but the point that doesn't make sense about that, Anders, if you think about it, is this: you're essentially assuming that the entire world system you live in will just collapse, at which point you won't be like a sheik, will you? Because at that point, essentially, like machine guns and oil will be what the like currency of the world is. Like it's going to take a while to transition to your fantasy. So my point was, in that scenario, you don't really win when you win. Like you win on paper, but you won't get to spend the money. So it's the same analogy with the Mad Lions one. It's like if Mad Lions can somehow beat G2, isn't everything just ruined? Does anyone want to live in that world? Do even Mad Lions want to live in that world? Like,
I don't want to live in that world.
Dude, I don't want... let's be real also. There is just no way they're winning that series. Come on, there's no way. Because like you said as well, mate, one of the saddest things about Mad Lions this split, even though they made playoffs, so fair play, by the way, like I've never thought they could get this far, is like the best player's supposed to be El Yoya, and man, this split especially is when he had his bad games. The last split I thought he was great. This split he's had some fucking sus one. Like he even does look a bit checked out sometimes, man. Mate. He sometimes looks checked out.
When I look at the Razork or the Sejuani game that he had into Razork, it's like, damn, bro, like we can't play Sejuani anymore. Like we can't hit a Sejuani ult. Like you're supposed to be like the mechanical prodigy. He's another example of when we talk about like the steady improvement of rookies or whatever. He's an example of somebody who like was playing way better in his first year than he's playing right now. He looks like very rough currently, and then his decision making is up. So before he had like really good decision making, and that's what made him one of the best junglers. But now it's like his decision making is okay, and then his mechanics are really flip. He's either amazing or he's just downright terrible. So it's hard to judge how Mad Lions is going to come in. Then there's the other part of it, which is something that I was mentioning on our other shows, but I'll run it past you, is the fact that Mad Lions is not even necessarily incentivized to win this playoff series versus G2. If they think G2 has a better chance versus BDS and a better chance versus Vitality, then they should just lose on purpose.
Yeah. This is the way you have to phrase it, Dom, because this actually, by the way, ties into the bigger discussion we've been having about the format. Here's a flaw in this format, Dom, that must be changed now. As you said, if Mad Lions actually believe G2 is the best LEC team, then they would be a fool to win this game, because winning this game now unqualifies them for MSI, if you understand what I just said. That's mental. There should never be a scenario, Dom, where it's better for you to lose the game. That's a flaw in any system right there. Come on.
Yep.
Because I agree with you. Yeah, it's actually essentially, here's the problem. Yeah, like as you said, no, you nailed it perfectly. Like Mad Lions, they don't think they're going to win this split. So like, yeah, the nightmare would be that they beat G2 and then Vitality or probably BDS after that would win the split, right? So that's so stupid, isn't it, for a format?
I just need to unsettle everyone. Like. I love doing that. I love just pointing out the flaws of the format. This is like 3 weeks ago on the show. We're like, hey, by the way, Mad can qualify if they like fucking get like 5th, 6th in the right situation. I just love throwing in all the ways that Mad can qualify by doing things that don't make sense. That's like my fucking that's my kink right now.
Because what kills me is this, dude. Is like, why is it always LEC has these flaws? Because remember, years back, it was that one where Rogue got in format. There. Yeah, they are, but whenever they experiment, they don't think through what all the scenarios are. Like even though this is an aside, I thought I'd put it past you. Did you see the IWillDominate tweet where he actually had an interesting suggestion for how we could tweak this group stage part of LEC?
Yep.
Right, basically what he suggested, guys, was this, that once you play out the initial groups, like essentially think of it as the upper bracket, his idea was that on the last match, instead of it just being like a normal GSL and you play out the lower bracket, his idea was the last match should sort of be the teams that are from each group cross over and play each other in a qualifier to see who makes the play. And because his reasoning being that way you get more matches between different teams. You also, crucially, this ties into something we talked about previously, you stop it being where if one group's just mega OP, that it ruins the whole tournament. Like you actually, like, by the way, this actually probably would have fixed this Mad Lions situation here. Like obviously G2 would have just murked Mad Lions straight up, wouldn't they? Like it would have been a game over. So I actually thought it was a pretty interesting suggestion. Like I'd be open to trying that maybe. It sounded good.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would much rather see a new best of three than see like G2 versus Koi again. I know that there's the narratives from G2 versus Koi again, but I think that also kind of eliminates the one issue of having three teams that were three of the best teams, three of the four best teams in the same group.
Yes.
Which is something that they kind of do during Worlds. Like during Worlds, it's a similar format where if you know the play-in stage, like the third seed then crosses over and plays versus the other group to eliminate that issue, so you don't get one group that's stacked. I think that it would definitely work here. I don't see like what the flaws are. I mean, I guess, yeah, I mean, I guess like breaks the laws of GSL groups or whatever. But I think that it definitely makes sense. The other thing that would help a lot would just to be you know, if there was just a best of five at the end between second and third. So you auto qualify if you win the splits, but if some team is qualifying based off points, you have the teams that are second and third in points actually play a best of five. So at least the team has to win something to get there. Like it feels very weird to see Mad Lions like narrowly beat Fnatic in a game they should have lost, then beat Astralis, who was like projected to be like a bottom tier team. They end up going fifth, sixth, whatever. And then they just qualify by getting their ass beat by G2. Imagine they just get 3-0'd by G2 and they qualify. And that was like the last matches they played. And they're like, yep, they're the second best team in Europe. And the one thing that I feel like is weird is people will go back to, but like the fact that they did well in winter and be like, well, if they did get second in winter and fourth in spring, shouldn't that qualify them? Because they've proven over the two splits that they are like one of the best teams in Europe then with the standings that they've been able to put together. I just feel like it's so weird to see a team qualify, have their strength in a previous split and have that qualify them to Worlds. Like that always unsettles me, you know. Even when it happens before, like even when it happens in other regions, for example LPL, you can pretty much never auto qualify if you had a bad summer split. You need to get through the regional qualifier, which is essentially going to be like the match that we're talking about here, that second versus third place points match. At least then you feel like, okay, well, they're able to get it together somewhat when it matters. Here, it just feels bad. It just feels really bad if Mad Lions is able to qualify if they get spanked, because you don't have any confidence in them. And then if you think about the other teams that you want to see, like if Vitality looks really good, and yeah, if Vitality looks really good, or if BDS looks really good, you would definitely rather see those teams at MSI over Mad. Like you just want to see one of the teams that hypes you up.
I think you've actually nailed it, but I'll rephrase it. It's the same thing. I'm just going to rephrase how you said it. Basically, what I would do is this. I would make the system change like this. Everything's the same in Point Storm. And what I do is this. Winner of summer, spring, sorry, obviously, because I'm doing MSI now. Winner of spring, so this particular split, they get to be number one seed. And then, like you say, what you use the points for is that creates the playoff for the second spot. And the playoff will be second and third team in points, play each other. And then the winner goes to MSI, because in that scenario, here's why that would be way better. One, nothing's determined till the end of the split anyway, so there's none of this shit now where it's like, but if I lose to you, then I win, but if I beat you, then I don't. There's none of that, so everyone just plays all the games normally. But the best part would be, unlike when Mad Lions went to Worlds, where they didn't win those best of fives, and we all were like, oh, I hope they don't fuck up. If Mad Lions won a best of five against, like, let's say, Vitality now, or BDS, who the fuck would complain about them going? They'd have just earned the spot, wouldn't they? Like, wouldn't everyone be like, one, they look way better, they just beat one of the top teams, and two, they won a series to get there. Because I agree with you, like, part of the problem basically is, it's like the Mad Lions going to World Tour last year. It just sucks if you sort of get there, but you limp there, and you limp there because of the rules and some weird shit you did months earlier. Like, essentially, if people don't know, we talked about this on the last year's show, basically what got Mad Lions to Worlds was, for real, just topping the fucking split. Like, they won that extra game over G2, and they were like, or the tiebreak or whatever, and that was what literally got them in Worlds, because it got them auto top four. So I agree. I think that would be a better, because essentially you always want to feel like someone won a match to get to an international tournament. This is essentially like you won a match months ago and no one else did a better pattern of wins. And also that doesn't even make sense anyway, because Vitality changed their team since then, didn't they? I know the format can't account for that, but the format's essentially treating Vitality like they're the team from winter, which they're not, are they? So it just everything thematically feels off if Mad Lions gets to qualify just on points. If they win a series, fair play, I'll give it to them. You know?
Yeah, I mean, there's other ways they could tweak it. I mean, spring could be just way more points than winter, where like...
Oh, it's weird how close the points are between them, isn't it, as well?
Is it identical?
I think it is. I think it's the same even, bro.
Yeah,
that's really weird, isn't it?
That's absurd. I mean, it should just be... Let me see. Yeah, it's
literally
literally identical.
Yeah.
It should just go up by like 30 points. Like, that's another one that could change. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of
Dude, what I
issues
would
with
do
it.
is this. I would even use this exact example, which is pretty much the nightmare, which is a team that wasn't even the winner of winter. They were just like the second best. What if that team collapses completely in points? Like how I would figure that out as the point give differential, because you want it to be that like essentially who comes first or second this time gets ahead of them anyway. So I would just rejig it that way.
Hey everybody, Monte Cristo here, and we have a new sponsor this week that here at Last Free Nation we would love if you would support. And it is something that I'm really excited about, and I've actually been using a lot myself, and that is Liquid IV. For those of you guys who don't know, Liquid IV is a category-winning hydration brand fueling your well-being, and their hydration multiplier is the one product you've been missing in your daily routine. I do a lot of heavy cardio at the gym with Muay Thai. And so I've actually been using their energy multiplier, which actually contains caffeine as well. You pour this packet into 16 ounces of water and it'll give you electrolytes, vitamins, a little bit of sugar to keep you going during your heavy cardio activities. It's been awesome for me. I've been enjoying the yuzu pineapple flavor. It's been really, really nice. But if you've been using a lot of these supplements, time to consider Liquid IV. It hydrates you 2 times faster than water alone, with 3 times the electrolytes of traditional sport drinks, and it contains 5 essential vitamins, B3, B5, B6, B12, and vitamin C in 12 different flavors. It's good for more than just working out. I'm gonna say, you had a hard night of partying, this might make you feel a little bit better in the morning. Also, it's festival season. Obviously, Coachella is going on right now, but if you are out in the heat for a long time this summer, you're gonna need some of those electrolytes back, and to get the water into your system just a little bit faster, I recommend this. I've been really enjoying it, as I said, and you can get it in bulk nationwide at Costco, or, and here's the discount for you guys, you can go to www.liquidiv.com, use the code LFN at checkout to get 20% off your entire order. So anything you like, 20% off with code LFN. Again, supporting our sponsors really helps us. So if you are working out, if you've got long, hot days in front of you, working outside, this is a great product to keep you going. Thanks a lot to Liquid IV.
Right, what about this then? If I spin it back, and obvious. Oh, by the way, just as an aside, because if BDS might actually go on and win the split, like we have to for real entertain that thought now. So Nook might end up becoming an LEC champion, or might all be egg on my face, Storm. Let me ask you now, before that happens, the obvious question, which is, how are you in or out on my statement? Which was, here's the thing, Dom. I never flamed him ever. I never said he's shit. I said he was shit in the past with nuclear in. Don't worry about that. But what I said about Nook was this. I said something, I can't remember the phrasing, but the gist was something like, he better enjoy this time on BDS, because basically, like, eventually he's going to be on a normal team and it'll be back to reality. Like, what I'm essentially saying is, if you just put him onto, I'm not even going to hate, it's not even heretic, put him onto like Astralis, they would just be an average team, I think, personally. Now, I will say, I'm with you. I do think this split he has played way better. Like, I thought last split he was a bit carried in the groups, in the BO1s, a little bit carried sometimes. But even then, by the way, he wasn't doing a bad job. He was just playing out a normal mage game. What do you actually think of Nook's individual level? Like, was that too harsh there? Am I missing something about his mid lane game, Dom? Is he secretly actually going to be one of the best mid laners just going on from now on?
I mean, I don't know about the future, but in terms of like right now, I just feel like he is playing his lane better than his opponent. Like, he's playing lanes that I would think he would lose, and then he's able to win. So, for example, ones that stick out to me is he's playing Cassio versus Orianna versus Larson, and that is a matchup where like Orianna outranges, and Orianna could definitely win that matchup. There's timings where Cassio can win, like level 2. You know, if you start tier and you all in level 2, there's definitely timings for Cassio, but you just expect in like, you know, in the laws of LEC for Larson to win that out. It's like, oh, Larson's playing control mage versus a shorter range mage versus a player that he is considered better than. He'll just end up winning, and then Nuck just forces him back to base and is just winning that lane. So I think that he's playing extremely well right now. Like, he is playing like the best mid in LEC. I'm with you in terms of, I don't think that this will be like I don't think he'll be better than Caps in future splits. Like, I don't think that if we snapshot this in a year, we'll be talking about Nuck as like, yeah, he's just better than Caps, the way that he looks better than Caps right now. I just don't think that'll be the reality, unless Caps like drops off. But I mean, a player that's Caps level, like, I don't think that he will be the best mid in LEC, which is what he looks like right now, in a year. But I mean, he's playing like the best mid in LEC. Like, if you just look at the way he plays his lane, the timers that he's on, he's always like He's always got his lane in a good spot. He's not dying to ganks. He's setting up ganks really well. He's playing team fights well. I mean, there's really he's actually, I think he's become the most stable player on BDS. Like,
that's a fair point. Yeah,
he's never having a bad game in any of these games recently. So yeah, I mean, he's definitely playing extremely well. I just, for some reason, it's hard to see a player like have so many bad splits in a row and then just erase them from your memory.
Yes.
Like, you got to remember, this guy's been playing in LEC for 2 years at this point, and a year and a half of that he was shit. He was just bad, like objectively bad. So I mean, it's going to take more than one of these mini splits. Like, if he was playing at this level for winter and spring, and he was just playing really fucking well the entire time, then I might have a different perspective. But I'm going to see more. I'm going to need to see more than essentially like 3 weeks of really good games in order for me to completely alter my view on him as a player.
Oh, by the way, I actually forgot. We forgot one name, even though we referenced it very briefly earlier. Dude, the actual player as well. Here's another thing about that Vitality BDS series. Let's not all pretend like every player on both teams just played their normal level and this is what the result is. Dude, Labrov was about twice as good as I've ever seen him over series in his entire career. Like, the joke is, this is the player everyone was fucking raving about how solo queue and like, oh, but you don't understand his scrims, he's really good. Like, maybe he was, but he never used to do it in LEC. Like, all he used to do was this. He got like all right last year, and then he would have the odd like Smurf game, like one game where he had a really good like fucking Renata game or fucking Thresh game or something. Dude, this split actually looked, this series rather, this one against Vitality looked way better than he had any business being. Like, fair play, he just fucking Smurfed it.
Yeah. Nothing else to add. He had a really good series. I mean,
there's another player, by the way. Think about that. There's another player we've seen split after split after split, right? Where he was just whatever.
Yep. I don't know. He's been a player that you always felt like he could never live up to the hype. It was like, oh man, this guy is so good in solo queue, but he just doesn't have it. For some reason, he just can't perform on stage. But he's another guy that falls into the bucket of like, it can't just be like 3 weeks, of good play, and then suddenly we forget multiple years of mediocrity. But I mean, you have to give it up to this series. He played really well. I actually think that he had a pretty bad last week or 2 weeks ago, I guess, at this point. Like, the Renata game really got me, where I just felt like he was off. The Thresh game, like, Nuck was setting up really fucking good plays where he would like flash W somebody. It's like, they're grounded, they can't flash. And then Labrov would come in and like hook the guy out of the miasma, so then he would be able to flash. So I was still kind of out on Labrov there. But this series was really good. I just wonder how it would be in like a close series, because I feel like BDS had like all the momentum this series. Like, they were just winning the whole time from like the game one. When game one comes out and you like 11-0 a team, I feel like that completely changes the dynamic of the series. Like, the enemy team ends the game, they didn't get one kill. They're like, fuck, bro, how good are these are these players? And then when you're in the game on the other side, you're like, damn, bro, we're way better than them. Just play the way we play and we're going to end up winning. So I want to see how he performs in like a close series. And yeah, I mean, it's like how it goes versus the other teams we talked about. There's no way that if G2 looks fucking good, if they go back to like smurfing on kids the way that they were doing in winter, and they easily qualify to the finals, I'm not going to go into it and be like, yeah, I just expect Labrov to outperform Mickey and Nuck to outperform Caps in like a 5-game series. Like, that's just, I feel like that's just unrealistic. Even if it ends up happening, I mean, I don't think that would be the most likely scenario.
Here's the problem, dude. I'm just going to say it like this, because here's the other thing. I'm just legit. Even if it's whack, even if my reasons aren't formed, I'll just say it if it's what I actually think. Here's my biggest problem is, it's bad enough when I do that thing I historically do with like Nemesis, which isn't even in the league anymore, of like, if he'd have won, he'd be the worst mid laner to win or whatever. Dude, except for Crowdy, who it's already weird he'd win with BDS anyway. Every name, this would be so mad if they were champion Storm. Imagine having to say LEC champion Adam, LEC champion Shio, LEC champion Labrov, LEC champion Nook in the era of Caps, by the way. In the era of Caps being on G2. Like, here's the problem, Dom. Nothing I've just said means they can't win the game. I just sort of refuse to believe I live in that world, basically. If there's any sort of, if I have the actual, like, the secret, the ability to, like, morph the world using my mind, I refuse to let that reality happen. I refuse to. I'm not going to live in a world of LEC champion Chio, Nook, fucking Labrov. Mate, my mate Forgiven never even made an LEC final, but Lavrov's going to win the LEC. Fuck right off. I can't take that, mate. I can't handle it. I can't handle it. I won't. Yeah. I won't handle it.
I mean, like, I kind of, so because of the fact of BDS, like, you feel like there's a limit to what's going on right now. The American in me that wants to see like LCF LCS have any bragging rights kind of wants BDS to win because I want to see them go to MSI and just like shit the bed and just see what happens. Like I want to see the warfare.
Can you imagine their fans, mate? It'd be amazing, wouldn't it? Yeah, it'd be amazing. But dude, imagine if any. Oh, I hadn't even thought that angle. I guess it happened slightly with Flacken. But what you need is this, Dom. We need one of those scenarios where an actual foreign pro, like it could be LCS player or it could even be like some Korean if they're on Twitter. We need them to inadvertently try and trash talk BDS, not knowing what those French fans are like, because mate, they will just get mobbed by all the fucking the Wee Brigade.
Yeah, no, I got destroyed recently on Twitter because they're like, well, yeah, I mean, like you flamed BDS last year and look at them now. And it's like, that's just not how teams work. Like, do we know how? Yes, I flamed them last year when they won 7 games across 2 fucking splits. They won more games.
Oh, they did. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, like
it's true.
They won the same amount of games in the fucking spring season, the season portion, than they won all of last year. And then, like, yeah, I mean, the other angle is the fucking they have like Striker and Adam. They've Striker now. It's like, I mean, Striker was coming off a bad run, like a rough run.
And he was only in the RLs, mate. No one knew if he'd be good in LEC. None of them knew that shit.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like, look, as somebody who I was definitely on the upset side of that whole like fucking drama. Awesome. So like, I've always kind of like wanted to see, like, I've wanted to see Striker fail just because I thought that he is such like a
fuck him.
I mean, it was just such a cringe take. It's like, yeah, I think Adam's in the right here, like tweeting about like making like lonely, like there has to be a world where that situation is just viewed objectively. Even if you're in a dispute, how fucking childish is making your name like lonely wife Uwu and being like, the only thing I could assume is that his wife was lonely. Really? Like there's a bunch of other things you could assume. Like how did that become the thing? And then for like a coach to come in, like the person that's supposed to be more mature in the situation to come in and be like, yep, he's right. Like, I don't know. I thought that whole situation was pretty weird. So
no, that was just some weird French thing, mate, where they just decided to like close ranks and like he's right no matter what, because I like him and he's French like me. Like as you say, dude, you didn't have to have any take on Adam or his personality or his game at all. Like, in that scenario, it's just easy to just go, "You're a bit mean there, mate. Don't do it." Because like in this scenario, why does Adam, by the way, just get to be right no matter what he does? Like, first of all, this fucking guy, this little pizza faced brat. The joke is as his job, he should be delivering his own face, not fucking playing league. Oh, sorry, that's sorry, self-made. That's your job. I don't want to take your job here. Like you deliver the pizzas. Okay, we got that one back. We can figure that one out. And the thing about we got that one. It's all good. No, the saddest thing about that whole affair, mate, is people actually do that as well. Have you noticed with takes? Like people act for real, Dom. Like cause BDS won that match of League of Legends. Somehow that like retroactively affects it, and like Adam was right or something. You know what I mean? Like what? Dude, like it's not actually like that. I don't know if you know this. It's not actually like that concept they had in like medieval Europe, where when you would have like trial by combat, the reason you do that, if you don't know, is because your premise in like a Christian theology is that God will make the right guy win the duel. Like the whole premise is like, if you lose, you were wrong. That's not really how League of Legends works, guys. Like, it's just fucking video games. Like, by the way, spoiler, I'm just going to say this. Even if Adam becomes a 10-time LEC champion, he was bag out of order on that upset thing, wasn't he? Like, why even comment at all on people's wives? Especially because the dirtiest thing about that, if people don't know, is that was all intentionally kept private. I'll just make a quick point here if people don't get this. You know what I will sometimes even now make jokes on like the Danny and the EG situation? That's because, Dom, it's all public information. Everyone has that information. We're all allowed to comment on it. Whereas I'll give you an example. I always said this. The biggest fuck up Lena did was making it public that she dated Doublelift. If she only did that behind the scenes, I would never comment on it. It's her private life. She can have her own private life, do whatever she wants with whoever she wants. But if you make it public, then you're open to criticism. So in this case, the reason Adam also fucked up is he just did it all publicly. Like that's just there on the internet forever now, mate. And also you've never fucking just copped to it and gone like, yeah, sorry, I was a dickhead. Like you just sort of like low key backed off it. So yeah, on that one, it's just like, I don't have any like. Listen, he's so young.
It's
whatever.
A good villain story.
Yeah, it is. It's like I do think actually low key. That's all the saddest thing about the fact that his wife's involved, because this would actually have been an amazing angle to play up for the broadcast of. It's just you can't, because it would be like Latigra's territory, wouldn't you? If you were like, I remember upset that time he said that stuff about your wife. You can't just do that on fucking LEC broadcast. Even though, by the way, if this was UFC, obviously that'd be the angle. It'd be fire, wouldn't it? Who the fuck wouldn't be ready to watch that match?
Yeah, I would love to see the Adam just like they put the fucking mic in front of him as he's like laying on the floor. He's like, your wife is in me DMs.
Exactly.
Like,
there you go. Exactly.
I would stick with it hard.
Your wife was fucking ordering on Uber Eats. I'm going to deliver the spring rolls next time. Get a fucking tip from a bitch, just the tip. Whatever. You see that? Listen, free associations always go with me. Right, let's do this then. The last thing we'll end on is this. Like we said there, we got sidetracked, but let's be real. There's going to be the match that we've all wanted to see, Dom. It's just not going to be in the final. There is going to be a best of 5 between G2 and Vitality, and it looks like it still has a chance to potentially decide the winner of the split. So what do you think when these two teams play in a BO5?
Ooh, I don't know,
right? Because G2's kind of in a bit sus form themselves, right? So who knows? Who knows?
I hate the angle that G2 has taken. Like the direction of their team in general, I've just not fucked with. They pretty much went from these like super aggro, like kill bot lanes, which I mean, if they get Draven, they'll still do it. But before, the thing that made them so scary is that they had all the other picks that would allow them to maximize this like strategy. So they would have the Samira, they would have like Kalista, they would just look for angles to abuse you. And now when I see them like lock in Lucian Nami early, it's like, who the fuck do you guys think you are? Like, this is just, even if they end up becoming decent at it, it's like you don't want to go into an international tournament with a decent Lucian Nami when you're playing against these other fucking teams that are insane at Lucian Nami, right? Like Ruler was the guy who started Lucian. Everyone just copied his Lucian Nami because they're like, oh, it's that broken. You go rapid fire second every game with first strike. Okay, we're going this for the rest of eternity where you're going your build because you're so fucking good at this pick. You don't want to go into an international tournament with that. I just want to see them keep their style. And there's glimpses of it. Like when they play the Bel'Veth, I'm like, that's such a pick that's like good for them. But then also, when you draft Lucian Nami, one of the biggest problems with drafting Lucian Nami is that it eliminates the flex picks because you have to draft them together first 3. You can't just draft the Lucian and then get like the Nami 4-5. So when you go Lucian Nami, you're locking in your bot lane and you're like, all right, now flex picks can never flex to support. Whereas before they had Jarvan, Gragas, where you always have to, even though Mickey X hasn't played Gragas this split, he's such a historically good Gragas player. You always have to entertain the possibility of him playing Gragas support. And then you like, when you look at the other side of things, he can play the Jarvan. So all the flex picks are still active, where now when you look at like G2's strategy, you're like, oh, that's just a normal ass game. It's like when they draft Vi first pick. All right, Vi first pick. We know it's going jungle. That's it. There's like nothing else that's interesting about this draft. They're just going to play a normal ass draft. So it's tough. I don't think the G2's bad. I still think if they played like themselves, it would be the best team. But it seems like they're really deep in the rabbit hole of this is the team we want to be. We want to be a more stable team. And draft meta stuff, and we don't want to have like all these super unique picks. Like I said, I mean, they will draft the random Bel'Veth or something like that, but I think that overall they're way too conservative in draft, where I felt they had a huge edge before. But I mean, I don't know. I guess I predict them to beat Mad Lions, beat Vitality, and I predict them to go to the finals. I actually think that the team that's going to have the best chance is going to be, I think it's actually a good gauntlet, because if they end up beating Mad, I mean, I think that their opponents in order of strength just line up perfectly. Like Mad is by far the easiest. Vitality is significantly better than Mad. We've seen that over the course of the season. And BDS looks significantly better than Vitality. I think BDS could beat them, but yeah, I'm not confident in the way Vitality is playing. So I think that if G2 shows up, they'll probably be able to beat Vitality even doing these types of drafts. But yeah, I guess we'll see. I mean, look, if they play a final versus BDS, I think there's some interesting things that go on, because obviously BDS really likes playing Jinx. They like playing Aphelios. If you like ban the Lulu or something like that, Lucian Nami actually does become pretty strong into the Jinx, like at least in the lane phase. And I wonder if they'll be able to, even though G2's not the best at it, if they'll be able to just use the fact that they have natural advantages in some of these like matchups to get leads.
My biggest problem is this. Like, part of me thinks, especially because I also agree, I think G2's looked mad sus, and quite frankly, not just this G2 lineup, but even the one last year at times did rely on having like a weird draft angle that you weren't prepared for, or that they had like committed to get a specific pick. They don't really have that right now for this split. I'm with you. But the other thing that kills me is this. I'm going to say, fuck it. I'll say Vitality still beats G2. But the problem with this is this, Dom. The problem is, one of my main factors is I do think that Bo could absolutely gap Yike. It's just that it can't be the Bo that turned up against BDS. That was a fucking atrocity. Yeah. So I still think Bo's way better, and I think in theory the bot lane should be better for Vitality, at least how they're going to play it out. So I still think Vitality can get the edges. The problem is Vitality, as each phase has gone on, has just had that one series where they look terrible. Just every now and then they have one really bad moment. I'm gonna trust they get past that, because the problem is, I'm sort of with you as well, Dom. The problem is, it is perfect if G2 beats everyone, gets to the final, then they powered up. That's all great and stuff. But right now, even they look sus the way they got into playoffs, mate. Like, fucking hell. That Koi series is still in my head, mate. I can't get it out. Like, because I'm just thinking of this. We're all flaming Mad Lions and how they're going to look silly at MSI, or like you said, maybe even BDS might look stupid. Dude, the G2 that lost to Koi could look really fucking dumb at MSI too. You know what I mean? Like, something is, everyone from Europe could absolutely just shit the bed, it seems like. I mean, even if my boys Vitality go, well, they can't just have a series like against BDS. Of course they could. They could just absolutely shit the bed themselves.
I mean, the reality of the situation is that like more teams in MSI is not actually good for the West, because you literally the 4 best teams ranked throughout this tournament are going to be the 4 Asian teams. Like the 2 Chinese teams, the 2 Korean teams just look way better than
especially because of double limb. Let's be real, double limb as well.
Yeah, double limb is tough. Yeah, once again, it's kind of weird how they have double limb for MSI, but that they won't have it for Worlds because Worlds is more prestige. I don't know. There's some fucked up logic going on there, but yeah, double limb. It's tough, man. It's tough, and you're not playing the best of 1 stage, right? Like you're playing just best of 5s the entire time. So I don't know. I think it's very hard for Europe at this MSI. There's a lot of things that can be talked about here. I mean, Yamada made a video about the format of LEC and the fact that it finishes so close to MSI. It feels so weird that MSI.
That is terrible. Yeah.
MSI starts in 2 weeks. We're having a show preparing for the finals today before even any of the three best of 5s have happened, and in 2 weeks MSI begins. Like imagine if this tournament was held anywhere besides for Europe. How fucking bad would it be for the players? Like they finish on what, the 23rd, and then they have 9 days to go to a different fucking country, prepare, try to get some scrims of some sort. It's pretty fucked up. Like you normally want to have more of a period where you can actually prepare for a tournament than like 9 days, including travel days and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's a little bit weird. I mean, the break week was so fucking weird to me. The break week where it's like, oh, we have to do a break week for the ERLs. It's like, wait, so the ERLs matter more than LEC? Or like, what's the point? Like, how about the fucking ERLs have a break and then they play in the fucking 2-week break before MSI? Why don't you do that? Why doesn't EU Masters start 2 weeks later then, if that's what we want to do? It seems just very strange to me. I don't know.
I've also, by the way, because we're being realistic and like, there's no way Mad Lions is making it. All I'll say is this. The actual real nightmare is this. Imagine if Mad Lions made it to the final and played BDS.
Oh, God.
Imagine if you not only had to see a final of LEC between those 2 teams, but then those are your 2 like teams for I can't handle it, man. And because the joke then is the dream, by the way, would be this, Tom. Mad Lions makes the final, but get absolutely shit on by BDS. But then in doing oh no, that would make them both qualify though. Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay for BDS. But there's no way Mad Lions can go, mate. Please no. It can't. It can't happen. Everyone else has a chance. They have no chance.
Maybe Mad Lions could pull out some Hilly magic. Hilly's
maybe in BO1. I could give them like a BO1 here. They're not going to win a series against anyone though. Come on. That's the problem.
I mean, no. They won't win a series. I mean, maybe they could be.
Like they would. I don't think even they would be. Like, would they? Here's the thing, Dom. Mad Lions probably would lose to GGS. I don't know on that one actually. I go back and forwards because like I actually do sort of feel like the best players on GGS are suited to actually have a chance.
Yeah,
it's like mid jungle, right?
Yeah,
exactly. So I think they have a chance to match up with him.
If El Yoya plays like he's been playing recently, River will absolutely shit on him. Like, because River's legit. He's a really good player.
Yeah.
He's kind of like Shale, where he's just mastered these champions that are in the meta. Like his Wukong, his Vi, like Sejuani, give him any of these, he's going to find kills, he's going to get you ahead. Now, the team is going to probably throw, but Mad Lions is not a team that's very good at coming back into games. Like, if they're losing early, it's probably just fucking done. You know, maybe if they get a fucking jinx, they can play an even game. But if they're really far behind, they're going to just die way too much to keep it close enough where they'll be able to come back. They don't have the discipline to wait for timing. So, yeah, I don't know. Mad at MSI, it's a nightmare scenario for a reason. No one wants to see it. I legit think Mad wouldn't even make it out of play-ins.
I mean, the joke, here's the fucking banger joke, I guess, is that if people don't know, the term MAD is actually an acronym from like the Cold War, and it meant mutually assured destruction, because it's the concept that if you have nukes, like neither of us can use them because we can both fire them and destroy each other. The joke is that's what MAD's become. Like at this point in time, like they're just going to ruin everything for like LEC, whoever they play. It's going to be shit. Right. Well, obviously, LEC, it's obvious, well, LEC is, but obviously also MSI is double elimination, but we don't have a single solitary fuck or point left to make. So that's the end.